Well, good morning. Boy, we had a good time. If you missed it last night, we had a great time at the Boland's Picnic. It's always a lot of fun, and it felt like fall. But we had a good time, and if you missed it, don't miss out on fellowships. You'll have a good time. You'll get to know people better, and it's a great way to spend time with your brothers and sisters in Christ. Now, several weeks ago, I asked for some suggestions for sermons. Not that I needed them so much, but I need to know what you would like preached or taught here in the pulpit. And we had a couple. This week's lesson is one of those. And the question is, how am I expected to handle stress in this world we live in and still keep my Christian character? I don't think I put that last up there, and to keep my Christian character intact. And so, as I thought about it, we all know stress is everywhere. I mean, it is just, our lives are so full of pressure anymore. I find it at home in our own lives. I find it at work here. I find it in the church, outside the church. Our life is just so full. I had somebody approach me last week about another side job. I mean, it's in line with what I do here, but I thought, I don't want to take on one more thing right now. But because it helped the church and stuff, I said, sure, I'll do it, call me. But it was reaching out in the community, and it's what we do. But it's just one more thing that adds pressure. Year round it's bad, but what do we got coming up that makes it feel worse sometimes? The holidays, right? You're either putting up with the in-laws or, I'm sorry, Dwayne. There's just a lot of pressure. And so I believe if we're not careful, pressure can mushroom up to the point it will break us. It can just cripple us. And we can see it in our short tempers, either with our family initially and then with outsiders, in our language, in our behaviors, the way we fight stress. And I did, Nancy's not here today, but I did this in honor of Elvin Upton. For those of you who were here in Elvin's days of preaching, he loved to give you spell out a word and tell you what each letter stood for. So this is for Elvin. But stress comes from those shocking moments in our lives, that telephone call in the middle of the night. It can come from the traumatic occurrences. I mean, think about health issues, things like that. It can come from the repetitious pressures we find in our life. I had to stretch for some of these. The repetitious pressure, usually our work, our jobs, errors that we make, and then we dwell on those and we think on those, and actually we make them usually bigger than they are, but that causes stress. The strain from trying to succeed at our jobs or just to strive to live our lives. Spending and money pressures, that ought to have been the first one, but I couldn't make it fit. Spending and money pressures, that's huge in our lives. There's a saying, if you keep a branch bowed long enough, it'll eventually break. Y'all know I have some bonsai in my office, and I love them, but I have had some that were worth quite a bit more money than others, and in trying to get the bends that are common in bonsai, I have overdone it and broken the trunk. And there ain't no fixing it once it breaks. It's done. Well, our lives can be that way. We can break our lives so badly that we can't seem to fix them. Now, thank God we're Christians, right? And we know everything can be fixed in our lives. But we put these unrealistic pressures on ourselves. And, I don't know about you, but sometimes I think busy is better. And we can get so busy that sometimes we're just busy for busy's sake. I used to tell my employees, I had a large office that worked for me, and I wasn't the typical military boss in that I would say, if you have nothing to do, don't just look busy. Find something productive or do nothing, but don't just sit there and do busy work to try and impress somebody. Well, the problem with that was my bosses didn't think that way. Typically in the military, you're either doing something or don't be here. And we can just get swept up in this tornado, in this circle of things that drag us down, and we'll get so dizzy and disoriented that we lose our purpose in life. And that type of pressure will cause you to bend to the point of breaking. Has anybody ever had a panic attack? Yeah? Or have you ever I get this. You're under so much stress that you think you're going to have a heart attack because you got that pressure on your chest, and you just, it's stress. And really nothing's wrong with you except your brain is saying, stop, change this. So today, in Scripture, just a second, today we're going to look at Jesus and how he dealt with stress. And can you think of the most stressful day in the life of Jesus? Remember? On Gethsemane, he is about to break. We know that from the sweat drops of blood, from the begging he did God. You know you're close to where Jesus was when you actually sit down and beg God to do something. So that's where we're going to start with our reading, and then we'll move forward from there.
The reading is from Matthew chapter 26, verses 36 through 44. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and said to the disciples, "Sit here while I go and pray over there." And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then he said to them, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me." He went to a little farther and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." Then he came to the disciples and found them asleep, and said to Peter, "What, could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away again a second time and prayed, saying, "O my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me, unless I drink it, your will be done." And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy, so he left them. He went away again and prayed the third time, saying the same words.
So, let's for a moment, let's use current language, common language. And so Jesus goes up and he goes to Peter and the sons of Zebedee, and they get up there, and what I see happening is they look at him and they can see the pain and the stress, and it's like, "Jesus, what's wrong?" And he says, "I am so scared. I think I'm about to die." Now, we know he knew what was about to happen, but he says, "I think that pain in the chest, that I don't think I can take it." As we like to say sometimes, Jesus is 100% God, but Jesus was also 100% man. And he felt the very pain that you feel when you're scared to death. And so Jesus says, "Guys, all I need you to do is just sit here with me while I pray. Just sit here. Be with me." Now, he walked away a little ways, we know that, but just be with me. They knew the concept because as a Jew, when a friend would die or a family member, you would sit Shiva. And Shiva is to sit silently and just show your love for the family and support by sitting there with your hands folded in a chair, not moving, just emanating your love for them. So Jesus is just do it. And then he comes back down and they're asleep. And then he comes back down again and they're asleep. All I wanted you to do was sit here with me. And you can't even do that for me? Of course, in his mind, unspoken is, considering what I'm about to do for you, you can't even make yourself stay awake? That's stress. That's stress. A fairly recent, last year, survey came out, and it said 49% of us say money is our biggest stressor. I'd agree with that. And it's been that way forever. It has been that way forever. 22% said it was family responsibilities. Another 22% say roughly it's work. And 7% said commuting. Now, I will tell you, when I moved from Atlanta to here, my commute lowered by about 58 minutes, from an hour to 2 minutes. But commuting is stressful. For those of you who have not lived in a major city, commuting is stressful. So we're going to look at 6 things Jesus did to help himself deal with this stress. Now, I said relieve, and I don't know if that's a good word. I almost said eliminate, but that's not a good word. Because did Jesus eliminate the stress? No, it didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. So what Jesus did was deal with it. Deal with it. We have a camp nurse, and I just loved her so much when I was directing, and we did the junior camp, and that's the little kids, and they would, everything. If they had one drop of blood from scraping their hand or something, they needed surgery. And they would come to the nurse, and she would wear a T-shirt several days during the week that said, "Suck it up, Buttercup." She was a real mom. Sometimes we just have to suck it up. And so Jesus didn't relieve it. He just said, "I've just got to handle it." So 6 ways we're going to learn to handle it today from Jesus. First off, get a break from it. You need a break from the things that are stressing you. Jesus sought a getaway, and that doesn't mean that he always went away. Sometimes your getaway can be in your living room on the couch. Sometimes it's out. There are times I've had to go away and just get away a little bit. But it can be as little as sitting down, as I always say, breathe through the nose and out through the mouth, and say, "I'm going to calm down." And then calm down. Talk to God. Well, we'll get to that one in a second. So Jesus sought a getaway. In Luke, it said, Luke 22, he just went as far as a stone throw away. Now, I don't know how far you can throw a stone, but I guess how big the stone is. But Jesus found a stone. Now, he walked away several yards from him, but just far enough away that he could calm it on himself. In Jesus 6, knowing that they were about to come and take him, he went off to a mountain by himself. That's a real getaway, a place for a break from it. Matthew 14, he went off to a mountain by himself to pray. Taking a getaway, just finding a place. For example, in Luke 5, a place in the wilderness, just a way to get away from what is stressing you and calm down. Now, I'll say this. We have a lot of young kids here. Okay, so dads, I know your day may have been stressful at work, but so was mom's if she's a housewife. Moms are stressed too. I didn't mean housekeeper. Moms get stressed too. And so I don't care how bad your day was, give mom a break for a few minutes. You'll get your break too. But give her a break. But I'll tell you one of the things Allison and I have done for most, and we couldn't always do it because she'd be busy or I'd be busy, but we've always enjoyed cooking together because we talk. I talk and she listens. That's just me. But, we're in the kitchen together and it's quiet. Finding that peaceful moment that way. Jesus, number 2, said, sometimes we just have to face it head on. So take your cleansing breath. And by the way, I am a strong proponent of meditation for that first one. Meditation is not sitting there and reciting some yogi something. Meditation is as little as sitting down, closing your eyes, centering your mind, slowing it down, and that breathing time. I think that helps me more than anything. But anyway, so Jesus says sometimes you just have to face it. Again, in our reading today, Jesus went up on the mountain and then went to God directly and said, "We got to fix this." That was his first statement. We got to take care of this, Lord. We got to do this. So sometimes we just face the stressor head on. If you're in a work situation where you absolutely are going to give yourself a heart attack, then you need to start looking for another job, or you need to find a way to lessen the stress in your job. Now, we all go through periods in life where we're going to have stressors and there's nothing you can do about it. The guy who was in the Army 20 years and 19 of it, we were at war. I mean, there was times that I could not do anything about the stress I was under. But then there were times when I freely admit I went and sought help from a Christian counselor because I was letting the stress of the job build up more in my mind than it really was. And I had to find a way to change that or break that pattern. And that's a good thing too. But we sometimes just need to face it head on and say, I'm going to deal with this. If your stressor is a brother or sister in Christ, we are told to what? Go to them. Face it head on. If your stressor is someone in the world, go to them. Same thing applies out there. If going to them is going to be detrimental to your health or safety or whatever, then find a way to move away from them permanently. Break that contact. So 3 times Jesus says, God, can we stop the crucifixion? Sometimes I think we forget in that because what we like to dwell on is, nevertheless, not thy will, not my will, but thine be done, Lord. And that is a great thing that he said. But don't forget the reality was he started with, is there any way we can do something else about this? Can we stop this? Never fail to put the human in Jesus when you read about Jesus. Never fail to assign. When his friend died, Jesus, he felt the emotion. When he challenged all of his followers and a whole slew of them walked away, it hurt him. He expected it, but it hurt him. When Judas betrayed him, you don't think he felt betrayed? So he said 3 times, stop this crucifixion. He dreaded it, but he faced it, but he did it with God's help. In fact, I think God sent an angel, remember? God sent angels an angel to give him strength and to comfort him so that he could finish. I know you and I are going to say a prayer, and we want an angel to sit down with us and put their arm around us, and we're not necessarily going to see or feel it. But God loves you enough, he'll do anything to help you get through it. So Jesus dealt with the stress. And how stressed was he? Blood's dripping down his face. Scientists say the blood vessels ruptured from the intense stress he was under, either the muscles contracting so hard or whatever caused it, his blood pressure getting so high. Regardless, the truth of the statement is he was that stressed, and I've never been that stressed. I've been scared. I've been angry. But I have never yet started just oozing blood because I was that stressed. But the human side of Jesus was that afraid of what he knew was coming. So 3 things that when it comes to dealing with stress in this way, we need to ask ourselves. 1, can I avoid the stressor? Is there a way to move away from this where it's not going to be so bad? Again, I sought Christian counseling, and they helped me immensely for a time. Can I alter my stress level? I had a boss once, and I can't tell you the whole story, but I had a boss one time that was on me about everything because he was a person that was ready to be promoted to higher levels. And that meant step all over your employees to make yourself look good. And one day I made a decision. I was the nighttime commander at Fort McPherson during the Desert Storm Shield. And I made a decision as the commander. And the next morning, the general came in to find out why I made the decision. So my boss jumped in. He should have never done that. Boy, he should have called me. He should have woken me up. He said, you're never to make a decision like that again. So I walked away, and I needed to walk out of the office for a minute. So I sent a note. Father, may I leave my desk for 5 minutes? Well, he didn't like it. But the general was still standing there. And he got the message. We made him the commander. He's the commander. He makes those decisions. See, I found the way to alter the stress was to just go at him head on and say, I'm a big boy. I don't need your permission to do everything. So alter your stress. And sometimes I just have to say, I had to say things like, we're at war. I can't stop the war. I just got to deal with my job. But I also stopped accepting the stress of other people. If it's Morgan's job to do that, then it's not my job. And if Morgan messes up, we'll deal with it when he messes up. But for today, Let him stress about his job. I got enough on my own plate, right? So avoid it, alter it, or accept it. That's your choices. Next, we see Jesus prayed for help. James 5:13, are you troubled? Pray. That's why I love James so much. He's just so plain spoken. Are you troubled? Pray about it. Quit whining about it. That's what he wanted to say, but he didn't. Pray about it. Matthew 6:6, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to the Father who's unseen, but he will see. Matthew 7:8, ask, it'll be given to you. Asking the Lord is the wisest thing you can ever do when it comes to overcoming stress. But unfortunately, you can sit here and claim it's not true. Unfortunately, it's often the last thing we do when dealing with stress. We try to figure out every other way that we can fix it first, and then we go to God. How about we just try it? Go to God first and say, help me figure a way to fix this. And then if you can't figure it out, go back to God and say, it's yours. I can't handle this. Now God help me. Do it for me. But first, if you will just sit down and quietly say, God, I need you behind me. I need your support. You will find out you have a whole lot more strength. I firmly believe God shows us the open doors and shows us the closed doors. But we got to ask. We got to ask. So, after prayer, go back and deal with the stress again. You faced it. You took a break from it. You faced it. It didn't work. You prayed about it. Now go back and try again, because now you got God in your camp. God's with you. Our stressors will not go away until we ask for God's wisdom and we ask for God's help in dealing with it before we act. But then we need to act. Then we need to act. How many times have you, I don't want numbers, how many times have you had a stressor in your life and you just sat there and you prayed about it? Great. That's wonderful. You thought about how you could fix it. That's wonderful. But at some point you just said, well, that's the way it is. I've just got to put up with it. I'll let the world beat me up if they want to. I'm not worth changing. You are the blood-bought, born-again child of the living God. You are a priest in his kingdom. You are clearly a prince or a princess in heaven because you are the child of God. You deserve better. You are worth more. You do not need to live your life in stress and thinking that the world is about to fall apart on you. Yes, do your part to fix it, but change your mindset. Change your mindset. So, in light of God's direction, face it in the way God would have you face it. Think about what would Jesus do, right? What would God have me do in this situation? How do I do it? Jesus faced his accusers. Luke chapter 22, 45 through 48, he says, when he arose from the prayer and he went back, the disciples, he found them asleep. They were exhausted from their sorrow. And he said to them, why are you sleeping? Get up and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. And while he was still speaking, a crowd came up to him. And the man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading these men. What about a slap in the face? Judas, who had been his friend and his follower, yes, he was bad news, but he had been Jesus' disciple, was leading them. And he approached Jesus to kiss him on the cheek. Jesus said, Judas, why are you betraying why are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? He confronted Judas and said, how can you do this? Now, what happened? Well, we all know Judas went out and killed himself. But why? Because Jesus transferred the stress of the betrayal back onto the betrayer. Jesus got rid of that stress. And when Judas faced his own stress, he couldn't deal with it and he killed himself. But Jesus said, I got enough on my own. I don't need what you did on top of it. When you're dealing with a problem in your life that is two-sided, two components, your component and someone else's. Don't take on their stress. If they've betrayed you, if they've lied to you, if they've cheated to you, it's on them. Let it go. You can't change them. All you can do is change your situation. So let it go. I have, and I will admit I am a little bit at times, I have been accused in the social work realm, I'll just say that, of being a little hard-hearted at times. And I am, because I have learned over the many years that we've been involved with George Agape and others, you can't help everyone. And so I cannot take on the stress of the ones I have no ability to help. I can't, because I could not live with that. You start throwing all the stats on me of every child that's not being helped, and I would just crumple. So I'm doing what I can do within the realm of what I can fix, what I can help. You never fix it, but you can help it. So don't take on somebody else's stress. They cheated you, as I said before. If they lied to you, if they betrayed you, that's not your problem to deal with. Let it go. You got enough problems of your own. So he dealt with Judas. He didn't yell, he didn't scream, he just dealt with it. He just said, you did this to me, and why? In Matthew 26:50, it says, Jesus said, friend, go ahead and do what you came to do. Judas, go ahead and do it. No, kiss me on the cheek. They're going to take me. It's okay. No, it's not okay. I'm sorry. I can't change it. Do it. Do what you're going to do. And the men came, they stepped forward, and they arrested him. And of course, one of the great things, one of those great examples of what happened in the New Testament, and when they said his name, what happened? They all fell backwards. They couldn't stand to even hear the name of the one they were taking. Anyway, next, make sure you keep your perspective on things. The Christian counselor I went to see did something to me because I was taking on stress, and I had listed all these stressors for him in the weeks before. And he told me one day, he said, bring your army rucksack, you know, that big green backpack we carry around. And he said, bring it empty. Okay. So I took a rucksack in, and there were a pile of rocks on the table. Concrete blocks there, too. He took a concrete block, and he said, this is your family responsibility. You're a Christian man. You must deal with your family responsibilities. Dropped it in the backpack. But a concrete block's not that heavy on your back. You can deal with it. And then he took another one, and he said, this is your duty to God as a Christian man and leader. Deal with it. Boom, he dropped it in. This is not the same as the sand thing I showed you the other day. But then he did take some bricks, and he said, this is work. You got to deal with some things, you know. Soldiers are going to die. Deal with it, you know. And at some point, I started doing this. And then I put a foot back to brace. And he goes, no, stand up straight, and you're bending. And he kept adding. And when I couldn't handle it anymore, he said, see, all these bricks, they're not yours to deal with. Quit taking on everybody else's struggles, because you can carry your own load. So keep it in perspective. You can carry your load with God's help. You can do that. We must keep our eyes on God's plan for us. So pray about it so that he will show you those open doors. Keep your eyes on God's plans as you deal with your stress. On his arrest, Jesus chose to do a miracle and rebuke the violence. You know, as we know, and one of his followers grabbed his sword and chopped off poor Malchus's ear. But Jesus reached out, touched the man's ear, and healed him immediately. And then he said to Peter, put the sword away. Don't I have to accept the stress that God's put on me? I know, I just paraphrased it. I just changed it. But that's what Jesus was saying. Don't I have to drink this cup? In other words, don't I have to deal with the stress because I've got to do what God told me to do? I've got to do it. So keep your perspective on what it is God would have you do. Make sure when you confront the stressor that your perspective is one of godliness and love. You don't know, in confronting this maybe non-Christian person or a Christian that's fallen away, you don't know how your attitude might melt their heart. Now, I've given some of you advice in the past to, you have to separate yourself, and that's true. If someone is so drug addicted that they're at the bottom, let them get to the bottom, because that's the only way they're going to climb back up. You can't keep enabling. Or if you've got a family member that's betraying you, sometimes you have to walk away and say, look, this is you. This is not me. I'm not going to take this. And give them a chance to come back to you. Or just set the example. And be godly and loving no matter how they're treating you. And maybe by that godliness and love, you might win them back. I'm not guaranteeing anything. There are some people so evil, they're not going to change. And there's so people that are so money driven and so whatever, they're not going to change. But that's not on you. I know I keep saying it's not on you. 90% of the stress we carry tends to be stuff that we accept from other people. I'm just going to have to keep pushing that. You're accepting their stress. Don't. Let it go. You got more important stuff to stress about, like your soul. That's, it's kind of important. For some of you, when you face your stress, you need to look at it in light of eternity, which is more important. Me getting mad at this person and letting them have it, it feels good, but only in the short term, or me getting to heaven. Which is more important to you? That's not rhetorical. What's more important to you, getting even or getting heaven? You're allowed to answer. Which one? Heaven. Thank you. I was a little concerned about this church for a minute. No, we're good. We don't want to go there. It's all right. We want to get to heaven, and so we need to control our attitude, our mindset. Some deal with anger. That leads to sin. Leave it alone. Anger never releases stress. In the long run, it adds more to it. Anger is about forcing a scenario to change to my way of thinking. And anger just hurts. All stressors can be overcome. How about this? If your stress is a family member, and you got to deal with that family member because you can't get rid of your family, why don't you try this? The old saying was rose-colored glasses. Put on a pair of God's glasses. See him as he sees them. He looks at him and says, that's my child. Please don't mess with my child. Or he looks at him and says, that could be my child. Won't you pave the way for them to become my child? Or maybe it's just, I see them for what they are. You can't fix them. Walk away. But try and see them as God does. Remember, everyone matters to God. Everyone matters to God. Everyone. And then lastly, don't give up. I think it's lastly, I don't know. Don't give up. John 19, when he had received the drink, Jesus said, it is done. With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. He didn't give up until he was dying, right that second. Now it's done. But he accepted the cup, that last thing. Too many today, they can't press through the stress. Zach made a good point about losing weight, and I don't agree with him because I don't want to at the moment. But Zach made a good point. It is hard work. You have to push through. You can't get to the other side without pressing through. In the Army, we used to say, Zach, other people, 1 million other people went through it before me. I can do this. And that's what we tell ourselves every day. Everybody. I mean, I thought about it, and if Steve Wheelock can graduate basic, surely I can. I can get through this, and you can get through it. Suicide is the 12th leading cause of death in the U.S. 12th leading cause. In fact, last year, nearly 50,000 people died of suicide. And 1.2 million attempted suicide. 1.2 million people. That's a lot. And that's just a lot of stress that got out of control. So keep your eyes on God. He promised to help you through it. Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. Since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, we read that this morning, didn't we? Since we are surrounded, who are we surrounded by? The witnesses of those who've gone before? The patriarchs? The angels? God's kingdom is surrounding you and watching you. So don't give up. So lastly now, I know this is last, I remember now. 5 things that can help you physically relieve your stress. 1, exercise is a great stress reliever. Go take a walk. Go take a walk out in the cool air. Enjoy the fall. For me and Allison, for her, it's go to the ocean and sit and let the water tickle your toes. For me, it's going to the mountains, the beautiful Smoky Mountains. Take a walk. Get away from it. Yes, Zach is right. Diet and nutritional eating make a difference. We can handle stress better when we feel better. Seek a Christian counselor. Now, I will tell you, I am available for counseling all the time. I will also tell you, I will always recommend to you find a Christian counselor that is not me, and the reason is many times people will open up more to a stranger than they will to someone they know and have to look at every Sunday knowing that I know what you know that you didn't want me to know. Did you follow that one? I can recommend, I have a couple friends here in town that do Christian counseling, real Christian, biblically based counseling. They're good, and I can recommend that. And I will say, if money is an issue and you really need it bad, I'm sure the eldership will support and help in that as well. Use wisdom in decision-making when you're under stress. When you are stressed, that's not the time to make important life-changing decisions. It's a bad time to do that. Make sure you exercise caution, because if you make that big decision, sometimes you can't undo that. So wait until you've taken a little break from it. Plan something weekly that you enjoy doing and do it faithfully. That's hard to do, I know. It's hard for us, because so much of the time we're not all in charge of our own schedules. Lately, see, y'all don't ever know who's watching you. I've been noticing Brenetta taking walks out here by church. I'll see her walking. That's good. Do that. Go to a movie. Go out to dinner with yourselves or with friends. Just taking a break, even that 30-minute break, is important. One of the things that was said the most at my dad's funeral, one of the things was how much people loved what he called back porch time. He had a beautiful screened-in porch in the back of their house. In Kentucky, you can do it most of the year. And he would have a string of people coming for advice, for counseling. The elders, after he was no longer an elder, even after he started having dementia, would come and say, what would your advice be on this before we have a meeting? People taking that few minutes to sit and discuss with a friend. So, Jesus said, find a quiet place and get away. Face your stressor head on. Don't deny the stress that's in your life. Pray to God for help and insight in dealing with it. After meeting with God, find your quiet place again, and then go back and face the stress head on. Make sure when you do it, you keep God's plan in the forefront of your mind, and determine that I will get through this no matter what. I will not give up. I will not give in and sin. I will get through it. That's my advice today. And really, it's Jesus' advice. It's how Jesus did it. And you got to admit, if it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for you. We are God's people. We are the pathfinders. We're the forgers ahead. We are the ones that can change the world with the help of God. So don't let yourself be crushed. If we can help you in your life today, please come while together we stand and while we sing.